Billionaire said, "I don't shake hands with blacks." Moments later, the black woman pulled $2 billion backing. Madison Brooks stepped forward, extending her hand with quiet confidence. The kind of confidence built from years of hard work, battles won, and barriers broken. But the man before her, Jonathan Reynolds, a billionaire known for his cold arrogance, looked at her hand and said, "I don't shake hands with blacks." The room seemed to freeze. One sentence. One moment. And suddenly, everything was on the line. What would you do if someone said that to you in the middle of a room full of people? This story isn't just about money or business. It's about courage, dignity, and the true meaning of power. Before we dive in, I'd love to know, where are you watching from today? Drop your city or country name in the comments below. Your voice matters here. Now, let's get into a story that shows how one woman's strength brought a billionaire empire to its knees, and how justice found a way to shine. Madison Brooks wasn't a woman who sought the spotlight. She preferred to work quietly, behind the scenes, building something bigger than herself. As the CEO of one of the largest investment firms dedicated to supporting minority-led startups, she had changed the lives of hundreds of entrepreneurs across the country. But today, at this prestigious investment conference in Chicago, Madison kept a low profile. She wasn't here for glory or recognition. She was here for opportunity and justice. Raised in Detroit, Madison's journey had been anything but easy. She grew up watching her parents struggle to make ends meet, always dreaming of a better future. That dream fueled her passion to help others like her, to open doors where others saw walls. Detroit's tough streets and hopeful communities had shaped her. They had taught her resilience. At 48, Madison was sharp, poised, and focused. Her dark eyes carried stories of battles fought in boardrooms and communities alike. The scent of her perfume was subtle, the way she moved calm but purposeful. Tonight, she wore a simple black dress that blended into the sea of suits and gowns at the conference, but her presence was impossible to ignore. Jonathan Reynolds, on the other hand, was the face of old money and old ways. A man in his 60s with silver hair slicked back, Jonathan had built his fortune through decades of deals, some ruthless, others brilliant. He was respected and feared in equal measure. His reputation for arrogance preceded him. Some called it confidence, others called it cruelty. The conference hall buzzed with the chatter of investors, innovators, and dreamers, all hungry for the next big deal. The lighting was soft, with golden chandeliers casting a warm glow on polished marble floors. The smell of fresh coffee mixed with hints of expensive cologne. Madison moved through the crowd with practiced ease, shaking hands, exchanging brief smiles, and collecting business cards. She had come with a mission: to find startups led by minority entrepreneurs that deserved funding, that could transform communities and bring real change. Her thoughts drifted briefly to Detroit and Atlanta, two cities she cared deeply about. Many of the startups she backed came from these places, companies working on everything from clean energy to education technology to social justice platforms. These were more than investments to her, they were legacies. Jonathan was stationed near a group of investors, his booming laugh cutting through the soft murmurs. He was charming when he wanted to be, but beneath the polished exterior lay a man who believed the world worked on his terms. When Madison approached him, extending her hand, she saw his gaze flicker, not with surprise, but with something colder. This meeting was about more than money. It was a test of character. Around them, conversations paused. The room seemed to sense the tension building, though no one spoke a word. Madison's mind was steady. She remembered the struggles of those she represented, the entrepreneurs who had been denied opportunities time and time again. Tonight was not just about closing a deal, it was about standing up for what was right. She wanted this deal to succeed, not for herself, but for the communities that depended on it. Jonathan's response would change everything. The networking hall was alive with the hum of conversation, glasses clinking, and the shuffle of polished shoes on marble floors. Investors leaned in close, whispering promises of deals and future fortunes. Madison Brooks moved deliberately through this sea of ambition, her eyes sharp, her mind racing. She had spotted Jonathan Reynolds from across the room, the man whose empire was the stuff of legend, but whose heart, she'd soon learn, was clouded by old prejudices. Tonight, Madison was more than a businesswoman, she was a beacon for those too often overlooked. Approaching Jonathan, she extended her hand with steady grace. "Mr. Reynolds," she said, voice calm but firm. "Madison Brooks." He glanced at her hand, then back into her eyes. The warmth she expected was nowhere to be found. "I don't shake hands with blacks," he said bluntly, voice cold as ice. The words landed like a punch. A hush fell over the immediate area. Some guests looked away, uncomfortable. Others stared, stunned. Madison didn't flinch. She pulled back her hand slowly, meeting Jonathan's gaze with unwavering resolve. "Thank you for your honesty," she replied evenly. Jonathan's smirk faltered, but he said nothing more. The ripple effect was immediate. Word spread quickly through the conference. Some whispered outrage, others, silent disappointment. Madison felt the weight of the moment, not just for herself, but for the countless entrepreneurs who had fought their entire lives to be seen and heard. Minutes later, Madison found a quiet corner and made the call. "We're pulling our $2 billion backing from Jonathan's deal," she said plainly. The news hit the financial world like a thunderclap. Jonathan's empire, reliant on that funding, began to tremble. Backstage, Jonathan paced, his phone ringing off the hook. His confident mask cracked under pressure as calls from anxious partners and investors flooded in. "This can't be happening," he muttered, fists clenched. Meanwhile, Madison redirected the funding to startups in Detroit and Atlanta, companies led by black entrepreneurs focused on innovation and social justice. At a small office in Detroit, a young woman named Tamika wiped tears from her eyes as she learned her clean energy startup had secured funding. For the first time, her dream was within reach. "You don't know what this means," Tamika told Madison over the phone. "You're giving us hope." Madison smiled softly. This was why she endured the insult. This was why she stood tall. Jonathan's world grew darker. His board questioned his leadership, partners distanced themselves, and public scrutiny mounted. In private meetings, Jonathan's anger boiled over. "How could one woman undo everything we built?" he demanded. His closest advisors urged humility, some suggested an apology. But Jonathan's pride was a fortress. In the meantime, Madison continued her work quietly, attending meetings, visiting startups, and mentoring young entrepreneurs. She remembered the streets of Detroit where she had grown up, the community centers, the schools, the dreams sparked by a helping hand. Her fight wasn't just about business. It was about dignity. At one gathering, a young man from Atlanta told her, "You didn't just invest in my company. You invested in me." That simple truth resonated deep within Madison. Back at the conference center, tensions remained high. The fallout from Jonathan's remark had shaken the room. But Madison's courage had sparked something else: hope. If this story is touching your heart so far, please give this video a thumbs up. It really helps more people find these stories. The journey was far from over. Just when it seemed Jonathan might recover from the shock, a recording from the conference leaked online. His exact words, cold, unfiltered, spread like wildfire across social media and news outlets. "I don't shake hands with blacks." The world saw what many had only whispered. The backlash was swift and fierce. Sponsors pulled out. Business partners stepped away. Investors questioned their loyalty. Jonathan's name became synonymous with prejudice overnight. In his elegant office overlooking the city, Jonathan sat alone, staring out at the skyline. The silence was heavier than any boardroom meeting. His empire, once untouchable, was now fragile. Meanwhile, Madison watched the fallout quietly but with a steady heart. She knew this moment was bigger than any one man. On a rooftop in downtown Chicago, with the sun dipping low and painting the sky in shades of gold, Madison reflected on the path she had chosen. She thought of the entrepreneurs she'd helped, the innovators in Detroit and Atlanta, the young dreamers now empowered by her support. This wasn't just about money. It was about justice. About dignity. Jonathan's world had shifted. His arrogance was exposed. His future uncertain. But with every ending comes a new beginning. If you know someone who would love this story, please share it with them. Stories like this remind us why standing up for what's right matters. For family, for community, for all of us. And with that, the next chapter was about to unfold. The days that followed were some of the toughest Madison had ever faced. The weight of what had happened hung over her like a thick fog, but it didn't break her. If anything, it made her resolve stronger. Jonathan Reynolds, once a titan in the investment world, was now forced to confront not only the collapse of a massive deal but the fracture in his own reputation. Calls from the media, questions from board members, and whispers in the hallways of his company filled his days and nights. In a rare public interview, Jonathan admitted his mistake. His voice was steady but tinged with regret. "I was wrong," he said. "I let old prejudices cloud my judgment. I'm committed to learning and changing." Some dismissed it as damage control, but others saw a man beginning to face the cost of his arrogance. Meanwhile, Madison kept moving forward. She visited startups funded by her firm, places buzzing with hope and determination. One by one, she met the entrepreneurs whose lives she had touched. In a small, sunlit office in Detroit, Tamika greeted her with a smile that couldn't hide the tears she'd held back. "You didn't just invest in my company," Tamika said, her voice shaking. "You invested in me. You gave me a chance to make something real." Madison reached out, squeezing Tamika's hand. "That's exactly why we do this." Back in Atlanta, Marcus, a young tech innovator, showed Madison the prototype of a new app designed to help low-income families find affordable healthcare. "This could change everything," he said. "Thanks to you, we're building a future." At Jonathan's headquarters, tension simmered beneath the surface. His closest advisors pushed him to do more, to embrace diversity initiatives, to publicly support minority entrepreneurs, to show genuine change. Jonathan felt torn between pride and the undeniable truth that things had to change. His world was no longer as simple as it had been. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Jonathan sat alone in his office. The walls were lined with awards and photos, but tonight they felt like reminders of a life unraveling. He picked up his phone and dialed a number. "Madison," he said when she answered. "I want to talk." On the other end, Madison was quiet for a moment before replying, "I'm listening." Their conversation was raw, honest, and at times painful. Jonathan apologized, not just for his words, but for the harm he had caused. Madison listened, her heart heavy but open. "It's going to take time," she said softly. "But change starts with honesty." In the weeks that followed, Jonathan took steps to rebuild trust. He funded new programs supporting minority entrepreneurs and publicly spoke about his journey toward understanding. At the same time, Madison continued to empower her network. She hosted gatherings where entrepreneurs shared stories, built connections, and dreamed bigger than ever. One night, standing in a warmly lit room filled with laughter and hope, Madison looked around and felt a quiet pride. This was more than business, it was community, family, and justice. Later, as she stood by a window overlooking the city lights, Madison whispered to herself, "True power isn't money. It's standing up for what's right." Months passed, and with them came change, slow but steady. Jonathan Reynolds wasn't the same man who had stood arrogantly at that conference. The public apology, the funding for diversity programs, the talks with minority entrepreneurs, they weren't just gestures. They were steps toward something real. Some still doubted him. Some said it was too little, too late. But others saw a man humbled, willing to learn. Madison Brooks, meanwhile, kept building her vision. Her firm's investments blossomed into thriving businesses across Detroit, Atlanta, and beyond. She stayed close to the people she helped, visiting offices, mentoring founders, celebrating every success. In a quiet moment in her Chicago apartment, Madison looked at a photo of her childhood neighborhood, a reminder of how far she'd come. She smiled, knowing her work was far from over, but proud of the progress made. Justice, she believed, was not a one-time victory. It was a journey. Jonathan, too, found himself changed. not just by the public scrutiny but by the people he met along the way. The entrepreneurs, the activists, the dreamers, they challenged his old ways and offered a new perspective. One afternoon, Jonathan and Madison met again, this time as partners, not adversaries. They spoke openly about the past and the future. "Thank you," Jonathan said quietly, "for showing me a better way." Madison nodded. "We're all still learning." As the sun set over Chicago, painting the sky with soft oranges and purples, Madison stood on her rooftop, the city lights flickering below. She breathed deeply, feeling peace. True power, she knew, wasn't measured in dollars or deals. It was in courage, the courage to stand up for what's right, to face the hard truths, and to build a better tomorrow. And that was a legacy worth everything. Thank you for listening. I'd love to hear what you thought about this story. Did it resonate with you? Please share your thoughts or advice in the comments. Your voice means so much. If you'd like to hear more uplifting stories like this, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your support helps keep these stories alive. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, share it with your friends and family, and don't forget to subscribe. I can't wait to read your comments. Until next time.